Hello and welcome. The Fantastic Four was my gateway drug to comic fandom. I had read hundreds of comics before discovering it, but it was the first title I obsessively collected. I couldn't get enough of those four distinct family members, their dynamic, and the challenges they overcame while trying to save the world from intergalactic bad guys. Picking a favorite issue from the decades of stories is not an easy task. That said, there's always been one story that stood out. It may seem like an unusual choice, and perhaps it has a lot of nostalgia attached to it, but it's a solid single issue nonetheless. Now, to briefly give the issue some context. Over time, Reed Richards lost his powers. Almost immediately afterwards, he's thrown into the negative zone by his evil duplicate from Counter-Earth. Evil Reed Richards, or the Maker, version 1.0, then takes his place on the team. Reed is saved and constructs an exoskeleton to have stretching powers in his arms. Believe it or not, Reed did something similar for Ben Grimm when he temporarily lost his powers. Yeah, the Roy Thomas era of the Fantastic Four was pretty weird. Anyway, even enhanced, Reed is mostly useless, and he winds up being possessed by the Molecule Man. Once that's resolved, Reed decides all these incidents indicate he's a liability, and he quits. Sue decides to leave with him. Without a leader, Ben and Johnny both agree it's time to move on. With that, the Fantastic Four disband. This brings us to issue 191. Ironically, considering the setup, it's one of the best issues about the Fantastic Four and their dynamic. The issue opens on Johnny Storm packing his belongings. He and Ben have a brief, sad exchange that illustrates how the two might have been at odds many times, but underneath it all, they really cared about each other. It may only be a few panels, but it is one of the best interactions between Ben and Johnny. This cuts to Reed overseeing a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents packing up his lab equipment. With the team disbanding, these are items Reed no longer needs, so he sold everything to S.H.I.E.L.D. Reed is nothing if not decisive and committed. To highlight the finality of this breakup, the landlord of the Baxter building hangs up a sign to rent out the floors occupied by the Fantastic Four. Both Ben and Reed take exception to this happening before they've even left the premises, so emotions are clearly running high. This leads to the lovable mailman, Willie Lumpkin, personally delivering a telegram to Sue so he can convince the team to remain together. She sadly points out the decision has been made, and it's final. Admittedly, of all the characters, Sue doesn't have much of a standalone moment to highlight her character. Instead, she's mainly supportive. It's still a character beat, but maybe not as evolved as it could be. Ben helps Johnny get dressed, and they comfort one another as the gravity of the situation sinks in. Then everyone says their final goodbyes. Reed stays behind to oversee the equipment being moved, while Sue, Ben, and Johnny face a horde of paparazzi asking ridiculous, inappropriate questions. And with that, they all go their separate ways. Upstairs, Reed determines something isn't quite right with the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Unwisely, he voices this feeling, and he's attacked. Reed manages to grab something that looks like a weapon, but it's actually the iconic flare gun. With it, he summons the other members. For the record, these people are actually minions of the bad guy, the Plunderer, an obscure Z-grade villain who also happens to be Kazar's brother. I mean, that character is a deep dive. Moving on. Seeing the flare, the other members immediately respond. I'd just like to note that Sue abandons her son and his nanny by the side of a highway in the middle of nowhere. That seems a bit neglectful to me, but Franklin is being cared for by the badass witch, Agatha Harkness, so he is safe. Still, kind of weird. Anyway, the team assemble and easily take down this bad guy and his minions. It's pretty impressive. The minions take a moment to change out of their fake S.H.I.E.L.D. uniforms and into their standard henchman outfits. That's dedication to the cause. After the battle, Ben makes a final plea to keep the team together, but both Reed and Sue disagree. It's time for the family to go their separate ways. All four go down to the lobby, and in a moment of acceptance that this era is now over, they hang a sign announcing the 5 floors they rented are now vacant. The final panel perfectly captures the mood and gravity of the situation. Every member faces the reader and struggles with their emotions in their own unique manner. It is a perfect, authentic moment. If this were a movie, there would be a slow fade to black and silence. I believe this is the only issue of the Fantastic Four written by the legendary creator, Len Wein. The storyline that follows is co-plotted by Wein, but the script is done by others. Eventually, Marv Wolfman takes over. He will write the series to issue 200 and beyond. The classic cover and the interior artwork by George Perez and Joe Sinnott is suitably serious without becoming melodramatic. The expressions are subdued, as one might expect during such a sobering time, as four family members split apart and move forward into an uncertain future. It lends a sense of finality to the atmosphere, and it highlights how great Perez was at capturing quiet character moments, as well as large-scale action sequences. Truly a highly skilled creator. What drives issue 191 home is the fact that the team actually go their separate ways. This is not a fake-out. The team really has disbanded. Johnny becomes a race car driver, Ben helps out NASA, Sue pursues a movie career, and Reed is hired by a shadowy research firm. They all tried to move on, but over the next year, a fiendish master plan intervenes to bring them all back together. To me, what really works is the emotional beats that highlight the core of each character, especially Ben Grimm, who really shines as the soul of the team. Even though he's torn up inside, he has the strength to comfort Johnny and give Franklin hope during a hopeless time. He's utterly selfless in those moments. There's also the false, bitter triumph of them successfully reuniting and working together to defeat a bad guy. But that victory ends on the downbeat acceptance that, despite their success, nothing has changed. The problem that led to a breakup still exists, and they have to acknowledge, in their own separate ways, it's time to move on. Even as a jaded, middle-aged geek, that moment still hits home. Since I have more space than I thought at the end of this video, I thought I would take a moment and plug two creators. The first is Jeff Nicholson, the creator behind Ultra Klutz, Colonia, and my favorite, Through the Habit Trails. He has a channel here on YouTube, so why not stop by, take a look, and maybe subscribe if you're so inclined. Link down below. Secondly, Francesco Francavilla recently posted a page of Jonah Hex artwork that he did for fun. If there's anyone from DC watching this video, well, first of all, hi, nice to pretend to see you. More importantly, make this project happen. Francavilla has a style that would be perfect for a Jonah Hex story. It's a Black Label project waiting to happen. So reach out to Francavilla and do it. That's it, I'm done. Roll credits. Thank you for watching. Thanks to all my fine supporters on Patreon and YouTube. Your ongoing support makes it possible for this channel to continue. I appreciate every single one of you. Please subscribe if you've not already. Leave a comment and a like. I try to keep ads and self-promotional bits like this to a minimum, so if you can, consider directly supporting this channel on Patreon. Extra special thanks to Green Man, Eidolon, Constant Disappointment Records, Jeff Nicholson, Sicken, Francis De La Cruz, Russell Bull, John Nyukes, Andrew Barton, Odin Ashcroft, Ruby St. Dennis, Phil Sagan, Edward Clayton Andrew, Corey Drew, L.S. Greger, Brian Deaton, Tom Granis, John Gaunt, James Graham, and Matt Marino. You're all justified and ancient. They got a message from the Action Man. I'm happy. Hope you're happy too.